All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're having a conversation on beyond the online rage. What then is the plan? Are we seeing early campaigns? What is the strategy for the younger leaders to take over? Or are they more of the same? That's a conversation we're having. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Citizen Daybreak. My guests are already with me in studio. Honorable Njeri Maina, Kirinyaga Woman Rep, thank you for making time. Anthony Buluma, CEO, Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, thank you for making time. Maliba Arnold, Public Policy Expert, asante sana for making time. Before we get into the whether campaigns are on or not, Njeri, I'll start with you because you're right in the fray of it all. What is your assessment of the state of politics in Kenya today?
Thank you, Trevor, for having me. And first of all, let me wish all Kenyans a happy new year. I don't know whether the year is new or old. I think it's the air is quite toxic, you know. We can see everyone is up in arms, exchange of words, tirade from top leadership. And perhaps we have lost traction of the mandate to deliver to Kenyans. And we have taken a detour from that mandate. And now we are seeing a lot of politicking in regard to 2027. It's a very terrifying space to be in for a young person. But I think the challenges come and we have to face them. You know, at the end of the day, personally, I've faced a difference of ideologies from my party leader and a shift in politics, you know, in Kenya region. So it's quite a lot to take on, but I think eventually we will find a way because we must find a way out of this.
What do you mean you're facing a difference of ideologies from your party leader?
A difference of ideology in regard to what we promised the people of Kenya and what we said we are going to implement, and 2.5 years down the line, nothing has been done so far. So for me, I took a detour because I felt that what we committed to is not what we were giving the Kenyan people.
When you say you took a detour, you mean you want to leave the party, or what do you mean by taking a detour?
No, by taking a detour, I mean I have a difference of ideology in regard to the perspective of what is happening. Yeah. In the political landscape, and also in regard to the executive and the interaction with Kenyans, with the Constitution of Kenya. Yeah. So I have a difference in regard to perhaps maybe the abductions. You know, we've seen the recent killings, we have seen the arbitrary arrests, we've seen the lack of interest in ensuring that we cater for the local mwananchi in regard to SHA, in regard to the higher funding model, the education system that's collapsing. Yes.
Is Kenya Kwanza still tenable?
Is it still tenable?
Hold? Yeah. Can it hold?
Can the center hold? I think the center fell apart a long time ago. I don't think it's working anymore. But like I've said, because we're in a democracy and we voted for this government, we have to wait until 2027, then Kenyans can decide whether they want to give us a different government or we will continue with this government.
Okay. What are the people telling you from Kirinyaga?
The ground.
Yes.
I think there's a shift, like I've said, in Mount Kenya region. Kirinyaga, the people feel that this government has let them down, you know. We were there campaigning with the president and the former deputy president. We promised them many things. We promised them water, roads, you know, even basic water from the dam that we launched that had been done by the previous president has not been done. So even the basic things, there's a road that was recently launched by the president late last year. And then immediately after it was launched, the contractor the following day just followed the president, you know. So I think people can see, it is not even a matter of telling them anymore. They can see the actions do not match the words that, you know, the sweet words that we told them during the campaign period. So my people feel that they have been cheated by this government, they've been lied to by this government, they feel they have been shortchanged, and what they thought they were getting is not what they're getting.
So you lied to them because you're part of this government?
I lied to my people?
No, you lied to them as a whole team, because
I didn't
you said that the sweet words you gave them is not what they're seeing in return.
I'm just taking collective responsibility. In my personal capacity, I didn't promise that I will do, or rather I will act in the capacity of the presidency. in regard to my mandate as a county member of parliament, I believe that I have done my level best, and the feedback from them, from the polls that we have seen, is that I am the leading woman member of parliament in Kenya.
No, I didn't mean you, I meant the administration.
Collectively, yes. I say that I have taken collective responsibility.
Okay. Buluma, what is your assessment of the state of politics today?
First of all, thank you for having me, Trevor. Happy New Year to you and our viewers. I think my own assessment is that we are not far from what we are used to, only that we are worse than what we are used to. I say this with a lot of sadness because Trevor was on the campaign trail. And at some point, I was actually in Azimio. Then I was persuaded to buy into the Kenya Kwanza narrative, which I bought into wholeheartedly. But I felt like at some point we started on a wrong footing because we started on the platform of lies. I say lies because, you know, a promise made should be a promise kept. I really don't feel like we have lived up to what Kenyans expected. So if I was to directly answer the state of assessment in the political environment, I feel like Kenyans are not very happy. I really want to appreciate the president. He's making a lot of effort to just try and reach out. But my honest view is that it's still not enough. Out there, people are still crying because the impression they had was that pesa itakuwa mfukoni. But instead of pesa kuwa mfukoni, pesa haiko. Apart from that, I would assess it based on what I have interacted with. And my honest view is that just the other day I was in another show and I gave a very honest opinion in terms of my view on abductions, condemning it and just giving it my perspective. Out of the many views I get on TikTok, this one attracted more attention than any other, you know, and it's not like I post just one content. I post different kind of content, but this one got the attention of many Kenyans, and most of them were applauding me for speaking out their heart. So I think what we have today is a country that is torn between psychophancy and reality. Psychophancy is really built around those people who are benefiting directly from the government of the day. The reality is today we have a country where the opposition is no longer the political class, it's the Kenyan people. I think we need to pull up our socks and actually address power for what it is. I feel like there's a clear detach between the government and the people. And you have a situation where the sycophants are gatekeeping the president, such that they're making sure he only gets what they want him to hear. But he's not getting the real pulse of what the normal mwananchi wants him to see and hear. I'm really very grateful. He was in Western the good part of this week, and specifically yesterday was in Busia. So after he toured the different places, and he was making some very good commitments that ideally the mwananchi should be super proud of, including launching something called, we have a place called Nasewa. Nasewa, they're doing an economic zone. But when I called my people, because I didn't go to Busia, I'll be very honest, but I was a candidate. So I have a fair appreciation of, you know, what the mwananchi was feeling. And you know, the feedback they were giving me is that, Mwesh, lakini, we are happy he came because at least we have something on our pockets for the few days. But outside that, we are not happy. We didn't see Raila. We really do not appreciate his visit. What does that tell you? It tells you that the president needs to actually interact with the real issues. He needs to do what he was doing when he was campaigning, have like a direct dialogue between him and wananchi. You remember when he was campaigning, at some point he would even interject during the, I don't know what we were calling them, but there was an opportunity for him to interact with Mama Mboga and actually ask them questions. He would stop him to boda boda and say, so you're saying if I do this, the government does this, this and this would adjust. That is no longer happening. He's listening more to the so-called sycophants who are completely misleading him and taking him far away from where the Mwananchi is. I'm sorry to be brutally honest, but I feel like the platforms we are getting right now are platforms for us to actually speak to power, but most importantly, speak what the Mwananchi wants us to say.
Okay. Maliba, what is your assessment of the state of politics today?
Trevor, it's also important because I've appeared on this platform a lot of times wearing the UDA hat. And it will be, of course, very important for me to just ensure that the voter does not get mixed up. I'm actually here as a public policy analyst, as I always showed up here 3 years ago, because, of course, things change. I have got new challenges to take up, and it will be important for me to just put out. So when I share...
Are you no longer with UDA now?
No.
You're not?
Yeah, so when I show up here, I show up here, of course, on the strength. The only place I will get a clear direction would be from the Open Future Hub where I'm working. The other employees are not the other employers are not comfortable to be mentioned, but it will be important so that my opinion then actually falls in that particular within the bandwidth that actually doesn't mix up people, because normally a lot of times people would be like, what happened so quick?
Yeah, that is actually, before you're the one who started clarifying, so let's make it clear.
It's 2 years.
Left UDA.
It's 2 years.
Okay.
Worked hard. There are a few other things to change. I'm also running for a political seat. I have to align. There's so much to work out. A number of things will actually come out as we move, but I think for the time being, you can always gladly, the management can always host me as they've always hosted me for the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Without the UDA tag?
Yes.
Okay. What happened there, though? Because I don't think it's fair to just tell the viewers that I'm
you know, Trevor, you love tea. Forget.
Because our viewers have been with us all this time.
You love tea, but don't worry, you have always hosted me here, and I've always been here for out of the content of what I bring rather than the tags I wear over time. So that shouldn't be so much of an issue here. But then, of course, people grow. There is always character development.
Character development. But you're an interesting one, because you've been on all sides before.
No, as in, because Trevor, you will know that I have literally worked in all spaces that young people want to be on. I've been at the National Youth Council, been at the lead of a political party as a youth leader, of course, then at TNA, now worked at UDA a little bit, and that for me has actually been a great opportunity to know how to run a political party. My experiences, those are opportunities you don't get easily, because and those opportunities actually build you to become a better manager of public affairs. When you come out here, you know what can actually be done right, what can go wrong. Those are spaces people take for granted, but every time you have an opportunity, you actually should be very, very grateful. Okay. Having said that, you asked me a question that I need to respond to, yes. But you seem to be interested with other things.
You brought up the other one, which you don't want to answer now.
The state of the nation for me feels quite Kenyan. Unlike what Mheshimiwa here thinks that the cause for Kenya Kwanza is actually a lost one, I do not think that Kenya Kwanza's cause is lost, and specifically I do not think that President William Ruto's second term or call to honor is completely lost. There are, of course, a number of things that need to be worked on if that actually has to be realized, but I do not still believe, because he has got a full year, this is the 3rd year, he has got a full year to course correct, to do things the right way, and win people. You know, for voters, it's not so much about what you do. It's about how you make them feel. We are social creatures. So if you were to point out on hard brick and mortar for what the Kenya Kwanza administration has done, there's so much that has actually been done. There's so much you can point out. But I know how we make voters feel actually then informs how they react to us. Like, for example, a number of things have actually been not really gone well to the point that people do not even want to acknowledge the good things that are actually happening. There are a few good things, for example, the president launched in Western on his circuit as he went around. There are also other things that he didn't have business being there. But these are other things that the administration is doing that makes it a little bit problematic. Like, for example, when we start arresting patients from hospitals, then people start asking themselves, how long is it going to take us before we start separating suckling children from their mothers? When we abduct young people and then speak English about that, how long is it going to take before we then now justify and come out like some regimes we see in the region where people get lost, people get killed, and no one does anything? But generally, if you were to point to brick and mortar, hard work, you can point out there's so much. Therefore, I think the handlers of the president and the administration going forward should also focus on the how you make people feel, not the what. You know, at the macroeconomics level, the Kenya Kwanza administration has done quite well. But you see, the promise was not largely about the macro. Macro is important. It was about the micro. That is about individuals, families, businesses, and how they are. So if there's no money in the people's pockets, then they might not really appreciate the state of the currency. They might not appreciate that we are paying the debt quite well. They might not appreciate so many of those things. So I would rather the president focuses now on how his administration makes people feel. Because people have now grown to a level where they do not care what he is doing. And by the way, he's actually done so well. People really now focus on what he's doing. So the treatment on how we actually are treating voters out there. And that's why you see people like Buluma, for example. Buluma is one of those very, in the political spaces that I've met over the 10 years I've known him, he's a very careful politician. So when you find careful politicians like Buluma here now are getting on the edge and being a little bit brutal, then you actually need to ask questions. When you find people who are not blabbermouths like Muturi, for example, who is a CS, when they start to get edgy, politicians who are very careful, they always walk in the middle. When you start finding them on the edge, then there are things to actually ask. So I think we really need to go back to the people because Kenyans really want to be treated with respect. It's not so much about what we are doing now also, it's about how we make them feel. And I want to remind my friends, of course, on the both divides, I now consider myself a veteran of politics because I've worked on both sides and I'm good. I'm actually grateful to God for that opportunity. That Kenya is a country that has a government. Kenya is not a government that has a country to run. A lot of times you see the decisions made and they feel like there is a group of people who believe that Kenya is a government that is running a country. No, we are a country that has a government to serve us. So when we make decisions, we should also be sensitive to the tone. We should not be deaf tone to the people, the issues people are raising. And when Mheshimiwa Njeri Maina here is actually talking about Mount Kenya and the others, because there is one thing, Trevor, that I'm afraid to actually say, that there is almost a unanimous voice on whom not to vote for. People might not know whom they are going to vote for, and that is the biggest problem in this country, that people know whom they want to vote out, they do not know whom to vote in. Because you end up doing the same mistake. So if you go across the country, literally, there's that feeling that Kenya Kwanza has lost its track. But like I've told you, if you look at the brick and mortar, the hard work, they've put in the hard work. But politics is relational. It's quite relational. So how we make people feel is also important. It's a soft, small thing, and that the president needs to do. On this, I would say there are three things that I think are very important for the president to actually, and his team to actually look into. Number one, we are now midway. It's important that we review the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. The better plan must be reviewed because a number of things have changed. We've gotten feedback from the people, for example. People came to the streets because we were implementing that plan. And the reason why it is a plan is because it can be reviewed. We need to review that plan against the realities that we have now, the economic realities, the social realities, the political realities. We need to align the better plan because we cannot insist, Trevor, that we are still implementing the plan when, for example, you have got a full year of demonstrations. That is feedback from the people. That noise matters. It is public participation. When somebody can actually come from ground floor to a boardroom where the CS is actually holding a press conference, that is feedback.
Okay.
Somebody should not be arrested for giving feedback. That lady who was arrested, she was arrested because she believed in this constitution, that it will protect her, that when she cannot get services, she can actually air out her opinion and she will be heard, not be arrested. As in, she should have been ignored at most at tactical level. The second thing that the president needs to work on, and this one I almost sound like a broken record, the president needs to actually get advisors that he can listen to. A lot of times I feel like his advisors might be, if you listen to them, they're very clever chaps, learned and stuff, PhDs, gallo. But either what they give doesn't really, is actually removed from the people. And that's what I'm talking about, what the people feel. Or probably the president advises his advisors. Because you can continuously get, and you know, the people's opinion matters. It's worth something. It's not useless, Trevor. Even that little noise. Like, for example, he's been in Western. I think the president has learned, because he's quite a sharp politician, that when you go to a market where the governor has never been there, he's also visiting the people on the day you are visiting. Then you end up having problems where they are shouting and booing you. And the president, who quote unquote should be an outsider, is now forced to be the one who's managing the situation. Now, do you really depend on that governor or that member of parliament or that senator, for example, to actually help you in an election? That wouldn't work. So the advisory panel, the president needs to find people he respects and people he can listen to. That is very, very important. Third and final, this one I've spoken, and a lot of times it will put me in the past in a lot of problems. But I still believe it's truth, that the president needs to fix his communication. I still really believe that William Ruto was the right man for the fifth watch of this country. I will give my reasons later on. So I still feel that he needs to actually get some things right so that he delivers the mandate that I believe he actually was supposed to actually take care of. The third thing is the communication bit of it. The administration's communication is broken. That we can speak of and repeat, and we can say so many things, but that communication is broken. Okay. Trevor, allow me to actually, in a minute, to actually tell you, because probably I might not come back to this, that like I've told you, there's so much this administration has done. If you walked around, there is so much work. I can tell you, you go to Mukuru and you see they are transforming. You look at the farmers and the fertilizer, they are transforming. Look at the digital superhighway. Look at whatever. There's so much that has been done. So the what is not a problem. The communication, there's too much noise between the message, the channels, and the audience. So you find a member of parliament probably making a funny remark, and that actually drives how the entire development is actually communicated. He needs to actually mainstream his communication, align it, because there's too much duplication. I said this the other day and I will repeat. Trevor, State House is not so far from here. If you stood around here and you threw a stone around 9 in State House, you are likely to hit a communication director. There are so many. When you come to, so there is the presidential communication team. When you come to the executive, you have got a government communication center, GCC. You will have the office of the government spokesman. Then they even created a new one called the National Communication Center. Now, in the government delivery unit, they've the other day come up with a very powerful communication team, I think led by that former editor for True Love, Carol Mandi. Then, of course, where I used to work at the party, that is UDA, you have got, of course, the communication teams that side. And that, for me, I think is the only thing that is working. Because it's only the communication, the political communication side that is working. That is why you realize that it's the politicians that are hated most. People are venting a lot of anger towards specifically MPs and the party and the president himself, who is the party leader. Okay. But then in between here, not so much is working, Trevor. Right. So those three things the president needs to work on if he really needs to move forward. All right. I have to take a quick break. When we come back, we delve into that conversation in just a bit. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Citizen Daybreak. See you shortly.